Welcome to the best of the Leon Charney Report. For over 2 decades, Leon Charney, one of the architects of the historic Camp David Peace Accords, has interviewed some of the most important figures in modern-day history. These interviews provide a window into some of the most significant events of the last 50 years. This excerpt is about the exhibit Let My People Go at the Museum of Jewish Heritage. It celebrates the 25th anniversary of the Jewish exodus from Russia, where Leon Charney played a prominent role in getting the Jews into Israel.
Leon Charney was one of the leaders of the movement in the United States. He was an activist at the time, and he in a way led a number of Jewish organizations to be part of the movement. You know, in the beginning, there was some reluctance on the part of world Jews and American Jews to be involved in that. They were afraid not so much, they were afraid that the fate of Jews will be affected negatively by that kind of involvement. And I think people like Leon Charney said, no, I mean, we have to stand up. We have to say what we believe in. We have to show that we are responsible for each other. We are responsible for every Jew. And therefore, we are going to be part of this worldwide movement that will, in the end, release Jews from the dictatorship of the former Soviet Union. By the way, there are a number of them here, a number of important activists from that era. Leon Charney was very well known and really focused on this struggle. But you have here Steven Greenberg, who was a young man at the time and was very involved with the Soviet Jewry movement. You have Mark Levin, who still had what used to be called the National Council of Soviet Jewry. It's still called, the acronym is still NCSJ. He was very involved as well. Feliks Frenkel, who came. So you have people who are very involved in this movement. Actually, they're all standing here.
Well, for the last 32 years, I've been on the staff of the National Conference in Soviet Jewry. But my involvement began even before that as a teenager in BBYO, standing across the street from the White House, calling for the freedom of Soviet Jews.
When did that first start for you?
For me, 1969.
1969. And they document the movement as starting in 1967.
Yes.
Did the Six-Day War have that kind of effect on you, where it motivated you to then?
Well, I think it had an effect on the entire American Jewish community. I think it, not only in terms of helping to spur activity on endangered Jewish communities around the world, but it also gave a stronger sense of our own identity. And more importantly, for Soviet Jews, it was a catalyst to become more visible, more public in their campaign to gain their freedom. After hearing from the Soviet Jews themselves that that American Jews and others around the world had to be more vocal, more visible, we became more vocal and more visible, and led to, hopefully, and I think in a small way, I mean, most importantly, were the Soviet Jews themselves in pushing their government. I've always believed that our own community, in a small but significant way, played a part in also opening up those emigration gates.
Where are you from?
Ohio.
What do you do in Ohio?
I'm in the real estate business.
You think you could find something like this in Shaker Heights?
Absolutely not. I mean, it's an incredible experience. I mean, you have to be here to feel something like this.
You're on American television. What do you want to tell the people?
It's an opportunity. The gates are open. We need to pull together as one and do what we can for these people.
Is this your first time in Israel?
It's my second time.
You coming back?
I'm coming back. I'm very emotional right now. It's overwhelming. It really is.
Well,
look at this. Look at this.
This is the in-gathering of the United Jewish Appeal, the Morosha, an in-gathering group greeting Russian immigrants. We're standing here with Jeffrey How do you spell your last name?
Rizepka.
Rizepka. Where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Cleveland.
And your parents?
My father's a Polish immigrant.
Came on something like this.
He went to Siberia and then to Australia. My mother was born in Egypt. We came to America. We have a wonderful family. We're lucky people.
Yeah, as a citizen of Soviet Union, you had a passport which had 5 lines identifying you, and the 5th line said your nationality. Being Jewish in Russia was nationality. I grew up in a very strong Yiddish-speaking household. Both of my parents spoke Yiddish. My grandfather was an Orthodox Jew who, till the age of 90, went to the farmer's market, bought a chicken, went to Shoyhet, so I knew a lot more. And I was circumcised, surprise. And also, Ukrainian kids at 7 told me that I was a kike, so it was a good reminder. Through a fair amount of anti-Semitism, at 17 I had to go to Siberia for 5 years in school, only because I happened to be Jewish. So it's funny when people call me here Russian, and there they would call me a Jew.
We're back. If you get a feeling this looks like Germany in 1933, it could be Russia in 1933. This is the Communist Party right behind us. When I was here 20 years ago, there were no modern stores on this street. Everything was state-owned. The only store you saw was the Goom store. And one thing I remember about Russia 20 years ago, it was very bleak. And there were no signs, no lighting. I mean, it looked very dour. Now it looks like, you're right, it looks like Fifth Avenue. You walk through the Radisson Hotel, you would think you're in the Plush Plaza Hotel on Fifth Avenue. But this seems to be splitting off from the mainstream of the country. These people here don't seem to be doing that well. And you have a huge mafia in this country, a huge criminal society. It's sort of, it's really a free-for-all in a sense. It's like the Wild West. I can see the fierceness in the people. What?
This is screaming Zionism now.
What are you screaming?
Zionism, if I do it. Zionists will not win.
Who will not win?
Zionism. Zionists will not win. That's what they're screaming right now.
There's an anti-Semitic outbreak here. Zionism will not win. A bit frightening to see this. You see films of the Hitler Youth in 1933, you sort of get a feeling you're in the middle of a crowd like that today. It's not very heartening, is it?
Not really. Unfortunately,
it seems to me that any Jew in this country who has the ability to scram, as we say in the vernacular, ought to take his visa and get to Israel as quickly as possible.
Natan Sharansky symbolized for many people the struggle for human rights and for Jewish rights. And his conduct throughout the period was one that inspired people all over the world. His determination to learn Hebrew, to study about Judaism, and to fight, and his willingness to be in jail in spite of it all, he definitely inspired everyone. By the way, for your information, he was a chairman of Beit Hatfutsot.
Oh, really?
When the exhibit first opened. Mm-hmm. So he certainly had an influence as well. And another important, the Russian connection is very important because the Ministry of Public Diplomacy and Diaspora Affairs, which is headed by Edelstein, who is also a refusnik and a Russian Jew, sponsored this exhibit, helped us really bring this exhibit to the United States.
We're back. I'm Leon Charney. I'm talking to Natan Sharansky, and I got a little bit of history with this young guy here because in 77 or 78, Asa Weitzman was the Minister of Defense, and I was very close to him. So one day he calls me, he says, Charney, you got to get over here. I got a lady here. She's a great lady. Her name is Avital Sharansky, and her husband's in a gulag, and you got to see what you can do. Call President Carter, see if you can help this guy. So we got on the phone, and she was there with a rabbi, I remember. Avital is her name. And we spent a couple of years trying to assist him. We're not the only ones who did it, but I can tell you that President Carter brought your name up at the SALT treaty with Brezhnev. I also went personally to visit Kreisky, and Kreisky called Kosygin for me, to see if we could help and assist you get out of the country. So here you are in my studio.
Well, thank you for helping.
Look at look at the great history here, huh?
Yeah, well, It was a great history, I think, a great struggle for us, for Soviet Jews, but also for American Jews.
But a lot of Jews were committed to it. Jerry Goodman, I remember.
For 30 years, American Jews were demonstrating and pressing and sending letters and bringing information to Russia and taking it from Russia. And it's really this solidarity of Jewish people in the end brought Soviet Empire down.
Do you know the name Davidovich, Olshansky,
Of course.
These were the three guys that I took out from Minsk personally. I was in the synagogue, I'm a cantor. I started to sing that. And then I went to, I was there under the Senate, Senator Hartke of Indiana. And he gave me authority on his stationery to save anybody I thought that we could save. Now, the Jews should save for humanitarian reasons. I never wanted to meet the people I saved, so I never met you, because sometimes you meet people that you don't know what their character is. But I did take Ofsitcher, Olshansky, and Davidovich.
Oh, you didn't take Davidovich died, but
No, but he died. Well, that's right. He died in Minsk.
Yeah,
it was a very famous case. They made a big party for me. I don't know what happened.
Well, no, they were great guys. They were real heroes of Belarusian Jewish movement. They were all former colonels of Soviet army.
Exactly.
And
I have a picture of them in my book, and we brought them out. I met a guy named Varain.
Varain.
Yeah. So my senator said, always bring a camera, because everybody loves to have their picture taken. So I go in and see Varain. Varain was chief of the Ovir, which was the guys who gave the visas, right?
Yeah.
So I says, you want your picture taken? He talks in Abaschopach, I don't tell. He's talking about in Russian. Yeah, take the picture. So I have his picture. And they said no one ever had his picture before. And he had a lot of power, right? He was giving the visas.
Yeah, until he was fired, he had not fired. They all, and then they were fired because they had to blame somebody for the failure of all this campaign.
So, all right, Natan, so you married Avital, and I think one day after you were married, you were sent to prison, am I correct?
No, one day after I was married, Avital went to Israel because she had the visa and I didn't.
Right.
We decided at least she will be there. And we were sure that in 3 or 4 months we'll meet in Israel, and it took 12 years.
I remember, and Weizmann really helped. I mean, he was very instrumental, and so was Carter. I mean,
many leaders tried to help.
They really helped you. Was it terrible in those prisons?
Of course it was terrible, but what was really important was that to know that the free world and your people are with you. And though I was in absolute isolation,
did you know it, by the way?
I didn't. Well, in 9 years I had 2 private meetings with the family. Under the law I had to have such meetings every half a year, but for so-called bad behavior they were depriving me. So in these 2 meetings I heard some, but of course I could never know how powerful this campaign was. But I didn't know whether I'll get out alive, because I never know. But I did know that they will not succeed to break it.
I'll tell you something you never heard. When I talked, I was very close to Yitzhak Rabin. And when I said, we're trying to help this fella Sharansky, he says, well, maybe he's in the CIA. You never heard that before, only on this show, and I can swear to it.
He never told it to me.
That's what he told me. On 7 Haravashi Street, we have in his living room, in the back room near the library, where he sat without his shoes. He said, maybe CIA. I'll never forget that.
He believed the Russian KGB. Carter then went.
You never hear this any place except this show, believe me. We know the history.
But in fact, if we are speaking about Carter, he did one thing which was important. In fact, with Carter there were many disappointments, but one thing which was extremely important. He went public and said that he personally looked into the archives of CIA and that Sharansky has no connection to anything. And that had a very big influence on all the campaign.
I write about that in my book called Spy for Peace. We'll get you a copy of it. We'll trade books tonight. And I write about that. And I said to Carter, I'm going to what's his name in Austria, Kreisky, and can I use your name? And he said to me, you know the song Fiddler on the Roof, a blessing on your head, do it. And he was wonderful on that, and he was very good to Iranian Jews who were stuck. He gave them visas. So the Jews have to be careful about how they treat Carter. We know the whole story. I go through it every weekend.
In modern Middle East history, only one peace treaty has stood the test of time, the 1978 Camp David Accord. In the new documentary film, Backdoor Channels, The Price of Peace, learn the true story behind the greatest diplomatic achievement of our time and its lessons for the future.
The price of peace is very high. To have this courageous man and my close friend killed.
Backdoor Channels, The Price of Peace. Now available at select stores including Barnes & Noble and online at Amazon.com. The preceding program was brought to you by Backdoor Channels, The Price of Peace.